Hey guys, my name is Frank, and on my channel we discuss everything team trucking, whether it's trucks, the industry, or the lifestyle. Today I'm going to do a little bit of a deep dive on expediting, what it is, what it means. I've talked about this, but I'm going to go a little deeper this time because I thought that I could share with you and bring back and kind of explain some of the things that the challenges on the carrier side and the shipper side and how it affects things in this industry. So now let's do a deep dive a little bit on expediting. So I'm going to give you a real quick rundown. There are three components that make up expediting. The first one is door-to-door service. Door-to-door, simply explained, we're going to pick up at the origination of the shipper, the person who has the product in hand. Sometimes most freight is, at a terminal or something like that. That's usually not what we do. Sometimes we do that, but we will usually go to a business and we will pick up freight and then we take it usually to the end user. Number two component, put on my glasses, sorry about that, is time definite. To explain time definite, I want you to understand that the carrier is going to give the customer a 15-minute window. If they say it's going to be there 1 p.m. Eastern, within 15 minutes of 1 o'clock, that freight will be at their door. And it doesn't matter if it's 2,000 miles or if it's 200 miles. The carriers that we work with, FedEx Custom Critical, they have an on-time performance of over 95%. And the last part is, which makes all of this possible, well, the carrier gives the customer who's shipping the freight exclusive use of that truck. So NASTech wants to make sure that this Mag Buddy gets to a customer that needs it right away, and they're going to lose millions of dollars if it doesn't happen. And they want to know where it is every step of the way. Our truck is going to go out, and this little box is the only thing we're going to pick up. And we're going to take it across the country with team service, and we're going to get it to them. Now, of course, I'm just using this as an example, but I want you to understand that no matter if it's something this size, which yes, I've picked up envelopes and taken them in the truck, or it could be as much as 15,000 pounds. Nothing else is going to go on the truck except that customer's freight. So you have something that you need, you're a shipper, and you need something, and you need a guaranteed time that it's going to be delivered. Now, this is where I'm going to go into a little bit more of a deep dive on this. Who needs this type of service? Well, there's several types of companies and agencies, government agencies, that need this type of service. Regulated industries, there's a lot of government regulated industries, such as, the FDA. We do temperature loads, and we have different levels of temperature services. We have validated, we have temp assured, and they all come with different levels of guarantees and things like that. The FDA a lot of times requires that a lot of pharmaceutical freight be shipped in this manner because we're capable of doing it properly. A lot of hazmat freight. Government, the government has its own freight that has to be shipped. A lot of it's Department of Defense, military, and I know they coincide, in other words, but sometimes it's different divisions. Also, high value freight. Now, so that explains who needs this type of service. Now I want to go into why they need it. Sometimes there is critical need for freight. Now, critical need can be defined by a vast array of definitions, but critical need is critical to the person that is probably receiving that freight, right? And it's something that for some reason they need that freight in a timely manner and controlled manner that it's going to affect their business in another way, shape, or form. And I'm going to get more into that. Loss of production is one of those things. That is a critical need. Sometimes you might have, let's say this pen. Let's say this pen is a whatchamajigger. And this whatchamajigger goes in a big giant machine. And this little whatchamajigger is causing that machine not to work. And that machine not working is costing the company a bunch of money, more than what it costs to ship the whatchamajigger to get there. That is another reason they might need it. A lot of times, and I just found out, freight penalties. A lot of people don't realize that that's a thing. And there are certain companies that if they don't meet the time allotted when the freight is supposed to be there, there are chargebacks and there are penalties. And sometimes these are paid by the carrier, sometimes they're paid by the shipper, and sometimes they're incurred by the receiver. So that is another thing that can go into. Here are the challenges. Logistics of this type of freight can come with its own set of challenges and goes into the cost of this type of freight. Trucks with the correct qualifications and or equipment that can make the pickup on time. Is it a temperature load? What's the weight of the load? Is the truck or is the equipment the right type of equipment to carry that much weight? Is there a hazmat or tanker endorsement required? And do the drivers have those qualifications? Is there security required on this load? Do the drivers have the training and the qualifications to carry that type of freight? Is there a lift gate required? Some places we go don't have docks and we have to unload the freight. And we have to have a lift gate to do that. It's a very expensive piece of equipment and that gets charged for. Do we need blankets and pads? Do we need to strap it down and give extra layers of protection for that, whatever's being shipped? Do we need a pallet jack when we're picking up or delivering, or both? Is it a non-adjacent, where you have to park over here and push the freight a city block? Is that normal? No, that's not normal. Does it happen? Yes, it happens. And so all of these things that I'm explaining to you, they go into the relative cost of this freight. And in relation to LTL or truckload and things like that, it's much, much more expensive. Much, much more expensive. The customer sees the cost and has to decide and justify whether it's worth the cost. And that always depends on a lot of these different little factors. And what I'm talking about is some of these things I've been talking to you about, which I've already talked about, loss of production. If this doodad is making the big doodad not work, and it's costing the company $100,000 a day in lost production, does it matter? And I'm just going to use a number, and it's $10,000. If it costs $10,000 to get that freight there, and it's this size. This is the size of the freight. And it costs $10,000. But you can control it and you can guarantee your boss and all of the workers and everybody else and everybody up the line that the machine's going to be working again and production of $100,000 a day starts up, or $1 million a day, or whatever it is, that number, that magic number, then the $10,000 cost to get it there doesn't matter. But somebody inevitably is going to see that cost, usually a logistics manager, and they're going to say, why did we spend $10,000 on this doohickey? And somebody has to answer that question and justify it. Is there a chance of a high value freight claim? Some pharmaceutical, a lot of high value art loads, machinery, electronics, materials, semiconductor materials, a lot of things like that. There's a lot of things like that if you can have if there is a freight claim, they want to diminish their risk by shipping it through a very qualified carrier such as FedEx Custom Critical. I want you to understand that we're doing the exact same job. We're just going to do it a lot more efficiently. Like I said, the 95% performance on-time delivery, 95%, over 95%. You're lucky to get in the 50% range on LTL and truckload. And it usually has to go somewhere else and somebody has to touch it and there's a lot of hands on it. With us, it's going to be the drivers. The drivers are going to pick it up and the same drivers are going to deliver it. Is the freight mandated by another agency that says or mandates that it has to be shipped expedited? The FDA can say, yeah, you can ship this. It's going to be injected into somebody's body. You have to ship it this way. The military, the Department of Defense, they want to control how their freight is shipped. They can mandate that that freight has to be shipped through our type of service. Insurance, the person that's insuring that freight, sometimes, like the carriers have their own insurance, the trucks have their own insurance, but sometimes the freight is such of a high value nature that these companies have to have additional insurance on this freight. And once you buy additional insurance on something, well, they're going to tell you how they want it handled and how they want it done. It's really important to understand that insurance they do things in a certain way where it's the less amount of risk to them. And they trust this type of shipping for these type of high value products. So they can say, yeah, we'll insure it, but you're going to ship it this way. Now, the challenge that the carrier faces, and why I said are shippers scared of expediting, is this expense. It's a much bigger number on a piece of paper, and you have to justify to the person that is your boss why the doohickey was sent for $10,000. It is one of those hot words that in the industry, that when they see expedite or expedited or expediting, that it tends to scare people, and it tends to make people go, oh, I can't do that, I'm going to lose my job. Well, you know, if you don't do it and you cost your company $100,000 a day of production in a 10-day period, $1 million versus a $10,000 shipping, that's when I think you should be fired. And it's not about that, but I mean, everybody has to justify what they're doing to somebody else especially these big corporations. And it's something that happens all the time. I hope this explains expediting and why. If you're going to comment any thoughts that you have about expedited freight, questions that you have, make a comment. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it's something that you can use and it sheds some light on this industry that we're in. Once again, if you are interested in becoming an expediter, you have a teammate, you are thinking about doing this industry,